Welcome to the third Wednesday worship service of the Unitarian Universalist Multiracial Unity Action Council. The name of our organization is quite a mouthful, so we usually shorten it to UUMUAC, which we pronounce UMIAC, or even sometimes just call the MAC. Our sermon this evening is by the Reverend Dr. Finley C. Campbell. The title of the sermon is Thanksgiving, a Multiracial Vision of the New World. And Dr. Campbell's description is a meditation on multiracial interaction of Native Americans, Pilgrim Christians, and merchant capitalists at what has been called the first Thanksgiving services in the Nouveau Mondo. Dr. Campbell has held a multitude of titles in his 87 years of experience. He's a near contemporary of MLK. He's only 5 years younger. Yep. The three he will celebrate tonight are his being the outgoing chair of UMIAC, the program coordinator of the Chicago nucleus of the Unitarian Universalist Christian Fellowship, and a sinner saved by grace who was a nurse's aide at the Mayberry TB Sanitarium near Detroit, Michigan. He is an ordained Baptist minister, and my understanding is that among Baptist services run about 5 hours. So we should
get to 4 tonight.
We should be grateful if Dr. Finley manages to get it down to about 4. I have some announcements. Not many, really. Mostly the day of the next service, the third Wednesday of December, is December 15th. I will be the preacher. The sermon title is Christmas for Grown-Ups. And if you
Finley Campbell's going to do the service today. He's retired as chair of UMIAC.
Dick Burkhardt, you can hear me, right?
He's the one speaking right now.
Dick Burkhardt, would you please mute yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. If you received the link for the service tonight from this email address, you'll automatically receive it in the future unless you opt out. Please feel free to opt out. Our feelings will not be hurt. But if the link was forwarded to you by someone else, unless that person decides to forward it to you next time, you won't get it next time. So you might want to write down that email address. Just drop me an email at that address and you'll be added to the list. The name Richard, the numeral 3, the word point @gmail.com. I will now essay to light a chalice. I always approach this with some anxiety. Oh, got it in one. We gather this hour as people of faith, having sorrows and joys, needs and gifts. We light this beacon of hope as a sign of our quest for truth and meaning, and in celebration of the life we share together. It is the mission of the Unitarian Universalist Multiracial Unity Action Council to carry out and foster anti-racist and multiracial unity activities both within and outside the Unitarian Universalist Association through education, bearing witness, and other actions, and expansion of our membership both within and outside the walls of our congregations. We also seek to defend our UU principles against those who seek to undermine them, which unfortunately today seems to include many of the national leadership of the UUA and the UU Ministers Association and of our seminaries. And this is very distressing to us. We envision our congregations, denomination, and society as not being color blind, but color appreciative, as judging and treating members of the world's rank and file by the content of their character, not the color of their skin or their cultural heritage, and as treasuring diversity in the context of the beloved community. We call this vision multiracial Unitarian Universalism. And this is the prize we try to keep our eyes on. This is the mountaintop. This is the goal, the unity of light and dark-skinned people of the world. And now Dr. Campbell has a prayer to share whose title is, "We are living in perilous times, O Comrade Yeshua."
When I stare out at the world around us, in the doctor's office earlier today, I saw a light blinking. It's one of those lights that blink off and on, off and on. You wonder, what the hell is that? And being somewhat a quantum metaphysics type person, I said the light was saying, be bold, be brave, speak truth to the powerless. I like to see this like a dramatic sermon type thing, where everything I'm going to do is sort of a part of a dramatic something or other. There's some people here who've seen my dramatic stuff in action, and I want to kind of just play with that a little bit without being overwinded and overlong. I look at John Milson, I think to myself, and I say to him, we are living in perilous times, my brother. I call you temporarily Comrade Yeshua, Comrade Jesus, Comrade Joshua, wherein we live with our personal joys and concerns, our existential types of existence and friends and relatives, and the political joys and concerns that surround us. And at the same time, all around us is a world in which joys and concerns are in contradiction, sometimes antagonistic, sometimes non-antagonistic, but always contradiction, Lorene. We should be thankful that with all our personal, existential, and political joys and concerns, we are not, oh Joshua, trapped along the Polish-Belarusian border, preparing to suffer and perhaps die in our desperate efforts to get to Germany. How interesting, Germany, the former citadel of white supremacy. Let us be grateful for now that our first National Day of Thanksgiving was in celebration of the defeat of another white supremacy group, the Confederate States of America, at the Battle of Gettysburg, where even then we could see white men willing to kill other white men that the colored folks could be free. It became one of the turning parts of the war. Oh, Comrade Yeshua, we're living in perilous times again. And we believers cry out, thou son of Mary and Joseph, have mercy on us and bring into being right now, not in some futuring time, but right now, the promise of the beloved community, when we shall at last cross the Jordan from necessity to freedom. And yet I hear your answer, like a blinking light seen from far away. Your answer, when you and billions like you hath boldly built it. Boldly built it. I sigh in disappointment and moan with new resolve to continue in that task. Yet in your name still I pray, Yeshua, thou son of Joseph and Mary. Amen, and amen, and amen. Now, in your own way, those of you who are with us this evening, let the silence come down, and for 7 breaths, pray your own prayer. Amen again. I'm reminded with our program tonight, with me singing and praying and preaching, about my father. He used to do circuit riding. He was a Baptist preacher in the South, and he would come to a church. He had to get the fire set up, make sure the seats were arranged. He would do the singing, then he'd do the preaching, and then sometimes he had to do the baptizing. But what they didn't let him do was collect the money. So tonight we're going to be somewhat like that. Following song is one of the things of my deepest heart. The church has one foundation. I got into a fight with a Unitarian minister because I wanted to sing that song at a church service that the UU Christians were presenting. And so those of you who may know some of these, I'm always changing words. So here we go. The church is one foundation, or a union, or a party, is Jesus Christ our Lord, or perhaps he's just another name for having nothing else to lose. She is the new creation by water and the blood. From heaven he came to claim her, to be his holy bride. And for her sake he suffered, and for her sake he died. Elect of every nation, though one throughout the earth, one charter of salvation, one Lord, one faith, one birth, one holy bread we eat it, one holy wine we drink, till one day bright in heaven, our arms together link. Those of you familiar with the original version might see a few changes there. We've already heard one reading, and so the other reading I was just going to have a friend of mine doing. His name is Richard Pardo. He's one of my favorite physicists, Argonne laboratory guy. We always argue about the nature of existence and God and so forth. We're going to be about something called the standard model in physics. I'm trying to develop a thing about quantum metaphysics to balance quantum physics. And so a great deal of the words I use when I use the word God refers to this, but unfortunately he cannot make it tonight. And if you want to see the whole poem, I'll be glad to send it to you. It's kind of fun, but you got to know about standard models of physics. Do we have a standard model picture there real quick, Richard?
We do.
A little taste of what the standard model, what God looks like. You ever wanted to know what God looks like? Well, that's what God looks like. Except there are three pieces missing from the circle. In the upper yellow orange part where it says quarks, we want to put there a new particle called the scion. The scion is the particle that connects to consciousness. And in that green part, we want to put another particle that's missing called the theon. And the theon deals with evolutionary activity. And in that little blue, put a super particle that's kind of holding it all together that I like to call the dielectron, which governs dialectical materialism, which is a philosophy.
Finley, you're breaking up, but so we've missed some of what you've just said, but hopefully this has happened before. Your Wi-Fi will kick back in again in a minute, but you should realize we've missed the last 2 or 3 sentences.
Finley, why don't you come here and sit here?
Sorry, we had a break. Can people hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that was a message from God to stop talking so much. So that's how I envision God. Except I like the historical stuff. I like the monotheistic imagery. I like the Moses story, and I like the Jesus story, and I like the Muhammad story. So it personifies all this complexity that covers the world and gives me some energy. I now pause to catch my breath. It's like a teleological imperative that there is a purpose. There's a purpose to all this stuff. And we are the vital part of that stuff because we have consciousness. So one of the reasons I got involved in this thing anyway was the first sermon I heard from a Unitarian pulpit, Atlanta, Georgia, April 1956, was about the Eisenberg principle. That was the weirdest sermon I'd ever heard. The idea that somehow the little particles are indeterminate. If you know how fast it's going, you don't know where it is. If you know where it is, you don't know how fast it's going. And the minister, I forget his name, said, that's human will. We're not determined. We are a interaction of the two forces, chance and necessity. Another song I like to throw out there for us is A Mighty Fortress Is Our God. Now we know what God is. God is a personification of all this stuff I just described, historically governed by the three great monotheistic religions. RT, are you going to be singing a verse of A Mighty Fortress Is Our God?
Yes.
Okay, and I'll sing a second verse. Then we'll get to the sermon.
A mighty fortress is our God, a bulwark never failing.
Amen.
Our helper strong amid the flood of mortal ills prevailing. For still our ancient foe doth seek to work us woe with craft and power great, and unwithstandable fate on earth is not equal.
And then I supplement that sort of pessimistic ending, and I want to add this part again, some changes. And though this world with devils fill, we have a power to oppose them. For with the right folks on our side, we shall with strength defeat them. And here's my favorite verse of this song. Let goods and kindred go, this mortal life also, the body they may kill, God's truth abideth still. His kingdom will be forever. Sermon time. Sermon time. Thanksgiving. I want to substitute the word multicultural for the word multiracial in light of the eighth principle stuff that's getting ready to come roaring down the pike. And since multicultural is a word that our opponents like to use, I thought I would mess with them a little bit by showing the true meaning of the word multicultural. So it's Thanksgiving, a multicultural vision of the Nuevo Mundo, the new world. The purpose is to make a controversial statement that the Pilgrims' Thanksgiving event is the epitome of what we call multiracial Unitarian or multicultural synergy. This is controversial because I am going to fully embrace the Thanksgiving event. I'm going to show that it was an example of this multicultural synergy. Now, connected to the way matter comes together to form different things, people come together and form different things. If I were to break this down into three parts, it'd be, what is this thing? How did we see it at the event in Pilgrim time, in that moment in 1623 when all those folks sat around that table, and why is it important in light of the eighth principle that we've grasped fully the concept of multicultural synergy? What is it? The coming together of different cultures to create a new culture, combining the best elements of the original culture. Very simple. Coming together, synergy, Native American, capitalists, Puritans. By the way, not every Puritan was a capitalist on that ship. They came to this country for religious freedom. The capitalists came for trade, mainly furs, and the Native American folks, they were already there. So we got these three cultures coming together. What do we mean by culture? Well, it's customs, arts, social institutions, and achievements of a particular nation, people, or other social group. One of the problems with our eighth principle folks, they don't ever define this term. And multicultural simply means relating to or constituting several cultural or ethnic groups within a society. So here we got these folks here around that table. All these three cultures. Let me repeat them again. There's the Wampanoag. I'm going to call them Wampas because it's easy for me to pronounce. They're a group called the tradesmen and the adventurers. These are my merchant capitalist buddies. They're on the ride not to change the world. They're on the ride not to build a new religious space. They're strictly to see how much money at some point they can make in trading with these folks. And of course, we have our Puritans. They're mixed breeds. There's some of the Puritans went north from this area. These were very peculiar. They were separatists. They were heavy duty Puritans. Although all of them are sort of in the Anglican Church, they're super heretics. They want to purify the church of negative power, symbolize what they call Anglo-Catholicism. That meant there was too much Catholic stuff still left in the church. So we want to purify that. We can't do it in England. They went to Holland. And Holland was free. People out there having a good time. They were a little too free. They were a little too much party in Holland for them to really enjoy the thing. They want a little more tight or pure. So let's go and escape all the way across the sea into this New England woodland. It wasn't a wilderness. It was not a wilderness. It's woodland. And there they come upon these people. They have all kinds of suffering. You'll read about it later. I'm not interested in the suffering part. I'm interested in the Thanksgiving part. An amazing coincidence occurs at that moment when they're trying to work their way through all these problems. There is one of the Wampans who speaks English. What? His name was Squanto, not to be confused with Tonto. Squanto spoke some English. Well, how did that happen? Well, in some earlier visits to the area, because there's a lot of contact going on between Europe and America. He happens to go to Europe, spend some time there, spend some time in England, and comes back. And in quantum metaphysics, we call this an amazing coincidence. At a time when we need somebody who can connect all these people together, there's old Squanto on the scene. Hey, I'll help everybody work their way through this. I will get past the language barrier. And as a result of that, they come together to create that reality. Here is what we got here at that table. In terms of cultural diversity, religion would be a specific criteria, with the Wampans being worshipers of earth, sky-centered divinities, or pagans as we would have called them in the old days. The separatist Puritans being Protestants, whose culture was rooted in Calvinism and the belief in predestination and the rejection of Anglican Catholicism, or they would be like heretics. And the merchant capitalist guys, I guess we could call them monetarians, rooted in the culture of acquisitiveness. And whether they believed in God or not, that was secondary to the fact they really wanted that money. So I'll call them agnostics. So we got the people all here. By the way, these separatists and these capitalists have the same skin color, but clearly not the same cultural values. Synergy. Well, when did the synergy take place? Well, we got to look for the point of unity, the theory of synergy, negative, positive, opposites. There you go. Opposites come together and form a single power. So what do we see here? Well, let's look at the food. That's always a nice point of unity. The vegetables they are eating are a mix of Indian and English types with indigenous forms dominant: corn, squash, beans. There was some food from England called barley, didn't quite make it to the table totally, but they dried it and used it anyway. There was no popcorn, by the way. I found that out in my research. And of course, there were various kinds of meats, fish and venison and fowl. Interestingly enough, fish and venison and fowl were common to the Indians, to the Puritans, and the capitalists alike. But most of all, it was a communal meal in a green and spacious woodland where all were welcome at that Thanksgiving table, not as our eighth Principalians would envision it, people seated at separate tables in a threatening wilderness. It was a meal which not only fills the body, but also the soul, with all the jollity and the socializing and the broken Indian talk and the broken English talk of those who had become horror of horror friends, coexisting in a force field of social, humanist, interpenetration, interdependence of, using quantum metaphysics talk, sociomagnetic energy powered by the electron. That is, that force that resolves contradictions by unity. They were like these elementary particles in my version of the Standard Model, who had once been separated by time and space, but now coming together to create the non-elementaries, giving thanks to the teleological imperative called many names by the Puritan, by the indigenous and the capitalist, eating around that common table, that welcoming table in that New England woodland. As a synergy of Native American and immigrant Americans, a new culture would be born, out of which generations later, and this is very interesting, a Black woman and a Black man would emerge, descendants of this multicultural synergy, which emerged a century before racism, white supremacism had created or had been created or reared its ugly head. What a vision, what a sight. Well, why is that important that we know this new way of looking at that event, this Pilgrim Thanksgiving Day, from a multiracial Unitarian Universalist perspective? Because like I said earlier, the onslaught is on. 125 churches have already signed on to the eighth principle. They're trying to create a storm of acquiescence, so that when we walk into the GA in 2022, it might be a done deal. And so we got to be strengthened. And always they look back on the past and they recreate it as some white supremacy nightmare. Well, we're here to say it didn't happen that way. We got to make our comrades and friends understand where white and black and red were at the same table eating the same food. The multicultural vision of the group called DRUM, diverse, revolutionary, Unitarian, Universalist, multicultural ministries, DRUM, they make it plain. Whites can't join. Whites can't sit at the welcome table because they got white cultural, white supremacy culture. And they always try to argue, well, see, that white supremacy culture was there when the Pilgrims landed. Because the first thing they did was start killing the Native American brothers and sisters. In contrast, so long as a person, regardless of their color and their culture, supports UMIAC's mission and vision statement as read earlier, and also our 7 principles. We're heavy duty into the 7 principles as they are welcome to join at our Thanksgiving table. To conclude, we'll have more of this with our conversation and our sharing of thoughts and joys and concerns, if that's important. To conclude, even today, this process of synergy is going on now. We're on the Polish border, in the midst of misery and pain and death. Belarusians, Iraqis, Afghanis, Somalia, and their secret Polish supporters are seeking their Thanksgiving moment in the present citadel of so-called white supremacy culture of the European Union, willing to brave death to get there, to brave their children dying of cold in the forests, heartless forests, not some sweet, lovable woodland, but pine forest on a winter's night right now, even as we are here together in these Zoom rooms, trying to get this safety, similar to what our brothers and sisters did so many years ago. And yet I'm arguing that all are being brought together by the same God who united the Puritans and the Wampons and the capitalists together at that Thanksgiving Day dinner. The teleological imperative, as I call God, rooted deep in the heart of the atom itself. It is still at work. And all the walls and all the water cannons and all of the hatred and the anger that the Polish fascist groups are trying to impose upon these brothers and sisters. They may kill some, wound some, hurt some, but in the end, I have it in a great faith in my heart that the Polish Catholics will remember how their ancestors had to flee Poland so many centuries and years ago to come to the United States of America. They might remember that reality and say, come on in, my brothers and sisters. At least that is the dream, that is the plan of UMIAC as we look today at this Thanksgiving Day. Thankful for you all being here tonight. Thankful for your concern and for the work we're going to be trying to do in the next year. And I would simply say this, my last words, and then we'll open it up for discussion. Whether you believe in my definition of God or your own creative process, mysterious love, love of the spirit of this place, however you put it, however you define it, the knowledge we are sharing tonight must empower you, must empower me to see the importance, say the necessity of fighting uncompromisingly while we can against any principle of multiculturalism that is defined by race. But that is the serpent that emerged in the garden that would have been the United States of America in those ancient days. We celebrate obliquely this Thanksgiving time. So may it be. Amen.
We don't pass the plate, but we talk a little bit here about ourselves. We are the Unitarian Universalist Multiracial Unity Action Council. We would like you to take a look at us. There's our web address. Our website is not as professional looking as we would like, but we think that what's said there is of high quality. The articles in our occasional newsletter, the Mac Arrow. We exist because, first of all, we think that the goal of multiracial unity makes a lot more sense than what the UUA and the UU Ministers Association and the two seminaries are talking about when they talk about dismantling our white supremacy culture. That doesn't really seem to us to be a good approach. We think, in fact, it's going to make racism worse. It makes us, we hate to feel this way, but we're kind of opponents of our national leaders in those three institutions, because we really do think what they're trying to do is going to make racism worse, and we want to make it better. And of course, we could just argue with them. We don't need to form a separate organization, I suppose, but they are not allowing dialogue. They're shutting down conversation. They deny it, but there's no question, if you look into it, that that's what's happening. They are becoming authoritarian. They are in violation of the first principle and the fourth and the fifth. If you look at the 7 UU principles, they are behaving in a way that contradicts the most fundamental Unitarian Universalist value, which is free thought and free expression. And so we are a separate organization, and we hope you would consider joining us.
Closing words. The emergence of the beloved community as an historical reality will be simply the prelude to the coming of a real Thanksgiving time worldwide. I end with my modest choir, in the choir is for this evening, with the greatest hymn in our hymnal. And every time I used to hear it in the old Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregation gatherings, it just brought tears to my eyes and chills up and down my spine. So if you know it, you can join us. If not, well, the way we can, but we'll do it. Here we go. I'll do it.
Please, folks, though, stay muted, because the
Stay muted.
cannot handle even two voices singing simultaneously.
That's right. So sing in the silence of your own, in the privacy of your own home. Rank by rank again we stand, from the four winds gathered hither. Loud the hallowed walls demand, whence we come and how and whither. From their stillness breaking clear, echoes wake to warmer cheer. Higher truth from saint and seer, call to us assembled here. Ours the year's memorial store, honored days and names we reckon, days of comrades gone before, lives that speak and deeds that beckon. From the dreaming of the night to the labors of the day, shines their everlasting light, guiding us upon our way. And here's the best part. Though the path be hard and long, still we strive in expectation. Join we now their ageless song, one with them in aspiration, one in name, in honor, one. Guard we well the crown they won, what they dream be ours to do. Hope their hopes and seal them true. Right on, Paul Douglas, your spirit still lives. Amen to that.
We don't have coffee hour, but we have a completely open conversation that goes on for a while until most people have left and the rest of us have gotten bored. It's an open conversation. It's about anything. Please, to help me to call on people in order, at the bottom of your screen, there is a little button that says reactions. And if you press that button, one of the options is raise hand. And if you click on raise hand, a little yellow hand will show up in your window. And not only that, but your window will move to the front of the line so I can call on people in order. And please stay muted otherwise. David.
They must not be real Unitarians in this Unitarian versus.
Oh, no, David had his hand up in a second. David.
Hi,
Hi, Dave.
well, I'm glad to be here. This is, to me, where the real UUs are. And I'm glad to finally get to attend. The local church I have kind of parted with, and even the CLF I have kind of parted with. And I was back to pretty well not knowing anywhere that there would be a church that I would go to. And here you guys are. It feels like home. And I just wanted to thank
Thank you
you
for
for being here with the chalice lit in the window. That's about all I had to say. It was just
Thank you, David.
I have to figure out how to unraise my hand. Did that do it? No.
Oh, I'll lower it for you, David.
All
John.
right.
John Kahane?
Yes, Finley, I want to thank you so much for your remarks and for your singing and for that background on your father. I've been watching the PBS series on the Black church, and we've got a lot to compete with, I think, there, because they do some really good work and have for centuries. We're so glad to have Finley reach over to us, at least I am, and come and bring some of that enthusiasm to us. So thank you. And thank you so much, Richard, for hosting this.
Thank you.
And I love those hymns that Finley picked. You know, even I figure I can sing good hymns even when I don't agree with all the theology involved. By the way, as in response to what David said, and I'll be short, there is a Facebook listing of Fifth Principle, and Nancy Haldeman, who's with us today, and Jack Reach, and I think Elena Graham, and maybe some of the rest of you are on that Fifth Principle Facebook group. And I would encourage you, besides the Multiracial Unity Council, to consider getting on that Facebook group and talking about where we want to progress to. Because frankly, I think it's going to be progressing to something else. And I agree with Finley that it looks to me like the politics is that they'll come up, the eighth principle will get the support in the UUA.
Thank you, John. Nancy?
Actually, two things. Our minister just told me in an email that we aren't going to be voting on the eighth principle. So I'm assuming she just knows it's going to pass at GA. But the other thing I noticed today at the service is the hymns that I really miss. We aren't singing any of these hymns in our church anymore. And I noticed that at GA, that the hymns seem to be disappearing. And I don't know if anyone else has been noticing that.
Notice it big time.
Thank you, Nancy. Dick?
Yeah, if someone else wants to go to a good service, you might try Todd Eckloff's service in Spokane, Washington, Spokane UU Church. And I go almost every Sunday to his 9:15 service. He also has a second service later in the morning, but they're not interactive, but they're very well done. And it's he's a classic UU minister, a person we can be very proud of, a deep thinker, even does a little fun. He's a puppet master, and they're a part of almost every service. So that's another option you might want to think about.
I want to say something, just kind of throw in something here, a little comment based upon, or it's actually a joke based upon a comment just made a little while ago. You know why Unitarian Universalists can't sing? That's because they're reading ahead to decide if they agree with the words of the theology in the next part.
And I just reinterpret the words to make sure they're true for me.
I just change them. My wife will tell you that sometimes if I'm sitting next to her, I'm putting new words in there.
Ruth and Sam.
Hey there, y'all. Morehouse days.
Please unmute yourself first. Okay. Oh, we still can't hear you for some reason. Is it just me or is it? Can
No,
anyone?
they're not unmuted. They're muted still.
Oh, yes. Yeah, you're still good, good.
Yes, well, we're so happy to be here to hear Finley Campbell, who is our friend from days at Morehouse in 1965 to about 68, and to listen to his sermon. I grew up as a Congregationalist, and we were very clear to distinguish between the Pilgrims and the Puritans. So it's I feel like probably there's no distinction there, but anyway, that's the way I was brought up. So I always feel a little qualm of the Pilgrims being called the Puritans. But anyway, I'm sorry that we will have to leave early. We have a meeting down at the city building that is important to us, and we're at a little different time zone than you, but we're lucky because we could listen from 6 to 7 and our meeting at 7, even though you're an hour different from what we are.
An amazing coincidence.
Thank you. John.
To add something to what Nancy said about the singing, in our church, we kind of get these pallid versions of hymns. As I buy fish, I don't want the cod that doesn't taste very strong. I want the salmon and the tuna. And, I think one thing that Finley gave us was he gave us the salmon and the tuna of hymns, the strong tasting ones that, that's what makes it worthwhile to me in terms of singing. And we're not doing that. We have fewer hymns and they're not really hymns. They're kind of sing-alongs, and and it bothers me. And Finley, thank you again for those hymns.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Alan Lerberup's hand slipped up.
Yeah, I just want to say, I did appreciate the sermon, as I have almost all the sermons we've had on our third Wednesday worship services. Just in response to the, on the issue of eighth principle, I think I'm interpreting the comment was that the minister in that particular church didn't want to have a discussion because they figured it was not necessary. And I think, trying to have the main issue, in my view, is a lot of people in the congregations don't really understand the issue, and they may have very vaguely heard of it, but don't really understand it. So I think each of us should try to encourage discussions in our own congregations. Obviously there may be different views, but the democratic process and calls on us to discuss these things and not let them be decided by others without our input. So I think there's a responsibility to try to raise them, and do what we can in support of the principles that we want to uphold. I'll leave it at that.
Well, let me jump in real quick. At our church, we have, there's certainly the powers that be want to ramrod this thing through. We were able at our last meeting that took place this past Sunday, where we brought it to the table. We brought out that there had to be debate, had to be discussion, not just sitting around in a circle, just giving opinions, but to actually disagree. And whether or not that's really going to happen, it was put out there. And certainly in our smaller units, we have many what we call program council groups that will be discussing that. Our men's group, for example, is going to be discussing it pro and con. I'd like to add to the list of resources, thanks to our friends in Port Washington, wherever that's located, Port Townsend, there is a, I don't know if we have it on our website yet, a really detailed analysis of the eighth principle, showing its implications, its roots, etc. Also, somewhere in our archives is a debate we had with Brother Craig Morrow on one side and a gentleman on the other, debating it. So we want to make available all kinds of resources for to have an informed vote and not let people be ramrodded through. And really, I just say it again, this concept of multicultural, which is at the root of their theory, is a racialist form of multiculturalism, not the true definition of multicultural.
Finley, I believe that there's a link to the video debate on the UUMUAC website.
Yes, I recommend people take a look at it if you're having this discussion at your church.
Karen.
Hi, from South Carolina. Oh, I didn't put my husband's name, Rod, here, Reverend Rod.
Hey,
As always, Finley, it's a great joy to hear you preach or talk or facilitate or share just about anything. So thank you for this evening.
Thank you.
When the conversation came earlier was talking, and I appreciate you, everyone sharing about resources to share with other people. That's very important. I just wanted to put forth a question to everybody with the politics going on now about CRT.
Oh my God.
I think I'm hopeful that things are going to change a little bit. People are going to I don't want to say that. I want to say they're waking up. That may not be the waking up from wokeness, perhaps. I'm hopeful about that. That's going to help. And the other comment I wanted to make is that we're all pretty old here. And if we, I think it's very important that we have this group. But right now, what I'm looking at is hanging in with the UUA, though I don't think it's very child oriented. Well, El Reda is, the religious educators are. They want to woke the kids. But I think our future is in future generations. So, either we need to, as a group, I don't know. Is it important to continue on beyond our own lives? Somehow I feel like it is, but maybe it's not. Maybe just that we're here together now is enough. But anyway, I wanted to bring up those two ideas and see what feedback y'all might have. My husband, I think he wants to say something.
I want to say hi.
Hello, my brother. My
I'm known
South
for-
Carolinians. Where's
There
Milson? I
you
thought I
go.
saw Milson
No,
on here a few minutes ago.
Known for my brevity. I will say this. I just got out of a board meeting. I was a minister for 17 years in Canada and the United States, UU churches. And, I feel that same thing, remember these great hymns, rank by rank, and these were very comforting pieces to me. The GA has moved into new territory in lots of ways that I can't identify with. I don't recognize it at all. And then the issue of colleagues being fired. unfellowshipped, removed, books thrown in trash cans, and then over 500 colleagues signing something they hadn't read, saying that this is a despicable piece of whatever they were saying. I have a hard time fathoming what's going on, because I retired in 2008 from ministry, but good God, I mean, I was the president of our congregation last year, and I sympathize with our minister because we're going to be talking about this. We're going to have our adult education workshops about this. And he wants to tread a gentle path. He doesn't want to see this whole thing blow up. And it could, because you can hear it in me, how deeply offended I am to think that we're seeing, excuse my language and my hyperbole, but the fascist style in which decisions are being made. And I have to say, human reason, as Eurocentric as it is, I would imagine that the First Nations and everyone had some form of reason that was used in the day.
Hunting buffalo wasn't based on dreaming.
I will stop talking, but I just want to say hi.
Yeah, thank you. So let me just make a quick response. We are absolutely trying to figure out a way, and we are figuring out a way to meet out with these young people. We have one of our members of our board is younger than all of us here. He's in his early 50s, late 50s. I'm working right now with a young woman in her 20s, named Gabriella. She's really responding to these ideas. Our church has not been good in general in creating an environment for participatory young adult. The work we were doing down in Bloomington, Indiana, I think is where it was located. We used to have a college-oriented group of folks. They got unfunded with all this new stuff popping up. So a lot of work will have to be done. So don't give up hope yet. A lot of these young people are looking for us. We just got to make sure they know where we are.
Paul.
Yeah, hi, everybody. I wanted to ask people, we got recently a message. I'm in Gainesville, Florida, so I'm in the southern region. I almost said southern district, but it's the southern region. And we got this email from October 26th from someone from the UUA inviting us all to attend this on December 11th and 12th, Compass, Navigating the Paths of Liberation Together. It's a virtual event, but this is basically about the Article 2 Study Commission. And some of you on the call already know about the Article 2 Commission, which is tasked with possibly changing our principles and the sources. And I was wondering if anybody else had seen this invitation. It was specifically for the southern region, but I'm wondering if the other regions are also doing a similar thing for the Article 2 Commission.
Yeah. The Mid-America is planning something like that as well. Mid-America.
Okay, yeah, ours is December 11th and 12th. And it sounds like they're finally getting underway with trying to pull together people to, I mean, this is a big deal, it looks like. And I'm a member of the Facebook group here, and we've discussed this a little bit already about the background of the Article 2 Commission, but this is actually from the UUA actually saying, here we go, we're starting this process. So the Midwest is doing this as well already.
Yes,
Okay.
I think we can we should publicize it. I think I may bring it up at our UUSJ meeting this Sunday to get the information on it.
Okay, so I'm going to sign up for it because it's a virtual event. I don't think I have anything to lose,
Yeah, that's right.
except the weekend. It's a long event. It's like the whole weekend. It's hours and hours. And I got a feeling a lot of it's going to be very religious and buying in and accepting what's being said. But again, I just don't know for sure. I just want to know what other people have heard about this.
We bless you to do it. You're anointed.
Okay, I will lower my hand now.
I'd like to say a quick comment about the CRIT debate. At the recent meeting of UMIAC board, I gave a political report on why the Democrats lost the Virginia reality. And that's because they were so busy trying to use technicalities, which was, quote, we don't teach CRT here, so we don't even want to talk about it. That was a big mistake. They should have examined it, went after it, pointed it out, that first of all, not only is it not being taught here, it should never be taught here. It is a very esoteric, at best, a very esoteric legal theory of racism in American jurisprudence that has been slipped over into this neo-racist stuff about white culture and all that other nonsense. They have to confront it head on. But at the same time, we don't want to be allied with the right wingers on this issue. We do want the issue of race taught in the schools from a multiracial, multicultural perspective, like we try to do here tonight, showing that this meeting that took place in the Pilgrim reality was much more complex than a bunch of white people coming and having food with some Native Americans. It was an incredible synergistic moment with the later basis for American life to come. So I think that we want to make the UMIAC approach to teaching of race, relationships, workshops, whatever. We want to offer an alternative, but we don't want to get involved with people threatening school boards with phone calls in the middle of the night. We have to be careful of that one. I'm sure we will be, but just be noticing that.
Oh, Wesley, hi. Wesley, please unmute yourself and please speak. You're muted, Wesley. There we go.
I was just going to say that you should think of, we may be grandpa and grandma to this whole group of people, but let us not forget, I remember JLA leading all the young students at the time in the 70s, and people were still running around. They were auditing things. They were involved with the IVI. He was, as soon as he landed, he was out there organizing things. And if you look at this, there's often an alliance between grandma and grandpa and the young people. It's people in the middle who are there, and that I think of Bertrand Russell sitting down in the middle of the ban the bomb demonstration in his 90s, surrounded by a sea of young CND people. So don't give up. I always also think of a lady coming to General Assembly and holding up her cane in one hand, and there she was there from her house on Beacon Hill, and she was saying, I think the young people are wonderful. We've all got to get together. In Twin Cities, I remember being outside of First Unitarian Society, and this very, very old lady came up to me and said, young man, in our time, we wore red armbands to demonstrations. So there is a kind of way that the young and the old get together, and I think that the number that signed that thing, they're in the middle. We've got them surrounded.
Again, another showing how this works. Craig, are you there? Well, you hear? I think you can hear me. I got a call from one of my young proteges who had been, use my language, went temporarily over to the other side because of whatever happened. I'm going to get the details. And so we didn't, I thought we'd never even be in conversation again because she, you know, in a sense felt that was a little bit too wild. And plus she was connected to these ministers at our church. And she was actually the president of our board, which I thought was not correct, but that's okay. I get a call from her asking me to come and either through Zoom or through somehow be a member, speak at your church if you're still online.
Her name is Ariana. And she was so glad to be back in touch with me. And I said, what? You know, so I have created a few seeds here that they're young, and sometimes they flower. So here I am, Ariana, who I thought was on the other side, is now, somebody said here, things evolve. She has evolved, and I was inviting me, and we're meeting on Thursday arranged for me either physically or Zoomally to preach at Brother Craig's church.
Wonderful.
So it's going to be interesting.
We're looking forward to having you, and it was a long journey, believe me. I've been recommending, and there are some sort of woke folk who are very suspicious of my recommendations. But I'm glad you're coming, and Ari and her family remember you very well from their time in Chicago.
That's right. There is a brokenheartedness to some of these battles, I must tell you. You can't have your heart broken because you think you've lost. So when you're really bonded with so closely, and this political stuff can, and as it should do, I mean, Jesus pointed that out. I have come not to bring peace, but a sword. Scary stuff.
John.
Well, I am one of the Meadville students I was a Meadville student back in 1960. And in the spring of 61, 4 of us drove to Boston for the first GA of where the Unitarians and Universalists joined together. And as we're coming in the foggy suburbs of Boston, David Bumbo is a wet noodle. And David Bumbo, who some of you know, said, I'm so excited about the merger of Unitarians and Universalists. And David Bumbo says, where there's merger, where there's decay, there's merger. And where there's energy, there's schism. And I will raise my teacup to schism, frankly.
All right, righto. We Christians have been doing a history of the Reformation, and I every time we're reading about the battles going on, I say it sounds like the same old stuff getting ready to hit this fan, except I think we're much better prepared for it. But I do want to hammer 92 Theses on the Beacons Hill door, wherever that door is.
It's at 24 Farnsworth Street now.
Thank you. That's the I'll come to my hammer and paper.
It may be a website soon.
Yeah. So are we done?
I'm hungry.
Yeah.
Where's the fried chicken and the mashed potatoes and gravy and biscuits?
Yeah.
They're supposed to be served to the minister after he preached so hard.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't transmit, it doesn't go very far by Zoom or by Facebook. The technology doesn't work for that, Finley. I'm sorry, but it doesn't work for that.
We need more spice. That's
you can get into Bibles and Beer with David Breeden at First Unitarian Society up in Minneapolis. And, he's got his beer. And someone said to me when I was publicizing this, well, what about, beer for me? And I said, you have to bring your own, because with Facebook and Zoom, we can't do that with the beer.
Teleportation will one day come and save us all. All right, well, comrades in the struggle. This has been wonderful. I'm very nervous. I'm always nervous making these sermons of any sort. But somebody said, if you're not nervous before you speak, then Holy Spirit can't use you. So I appreciate the opportunity, and let's keep going. And this Thanksgiving, remember the story. We have our own narrative. Don't let anybody try to ramrod some new pseudo truth down your throats at your Thanksgiving activities. They raise the word like white supremacy and pilgrims or invaders and all that kind of stuff. They say, well, check with this video we have here, and I hope will be in our archives. So be blessed, everyone. And have we extinguished the chalice?
We have.
All right, then I can go in peace. Go now in peace. Go now in peace. May the Spirit of God or love for whatever surrounds you, everywhere, everywhere we may